I was the quiet sister. She was the brand. She took my pain, my past, and my fiancé. This is family drama that went too far. A revenge story built slowly, silently, until justice finally had a screen big enough to tell the truth. My sister didn't just steal my fiancé. She stole my childhood trauma and sold it as a best-selling memoir. But as she walked down the aisle on national television, she didn't realize I was the one controlling the projector. I remember the exact moment I decided to burn my family to the ground. It wasn't when Chloe slept with Mark. It wasn't even when they announced their engagement 3 months later. It was the day I walked into a bookstore and saw my own life story sitting on the New York Times bestseller shelf with Chloe's face plastered on the cover. But before I tell you about the end, you need to understand the beginning. You need to understand what it means to be Arianna Ruiz, the shadow to Chloe Ruiz's son. From the moment Chloe was born, she was the protagonist of our family. She was louder, prettier, and demanded attention with a ferocity that exhausted everyone around her. My parents, dazzled by her charisma, naturally fell into her orbit. I was 2 years older, quiet, studious, and dependable. In the economy of our household, I was the worker bee and Chloe was the queen. When we were teenagers, Chloe started a YouTube channel. It began with makeup tutorials and fashion hauls, funded entirely by my parents' credit cards. While I was working shifts at a local library to save for college, Chloe was getting $1,000 allowances for production costs. If I complained, my mother would sigh and tell me I just didn't understand Chloe's vision. "She's building a brand, Arianna," my father would say, dismissing my straight-A report card with a wave of his hand. "Grades are fine, but influence is power." I kept my head down. I thought if I just worked hard enough, I could escape. I got into a good university on a partial scholarship, studied marketing, and eventually landed a stable job at a mid-sized tech firm. I met Mark there. Mark was everything I thought I wanted. He was kind, attentive, and seemed to see me. For 2 years, we built a life. We talked about buying a house. We talked about kids. He was the first thing in my life that felt exclusively mine. Then came the Christmas party. I made the mistake of bringing Mark home. Chloe had just hit 1 million subscribers and was in rare form, holding court in the living room, recounting stories that were exaggerated by at least 50%. When Mark walked in, Chloe's eyes locked onto him like a predator spotting a wounded gazelle. "So this is the mystery man," she purred, ignoring me completely. Over the next few months, it was subtle. Chloe suddenly needed help with tech issues and would ask Mark, not me, even though I was the one with the tech background. She would invite us over, but the conversations would slowly drift into inside jokes between her and Mark. She'd text him memes, she'd tag him in posts. I tried to talk to Mark about it. "She's just being friendly, Ari," he said, rolling his eyes. "You're being paranoid. She's your sister." The gaslighting was masterful. I started to feel crazy. Maybe I was just jealous. Maybe I was being the bitter older sister. Then came the day I came home early from a business trip. I walked into our apartment and it felt different. The air was heavy. I saw a pair of designer heels by the door. Chloe's heels. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just walked to the bedroom door and pushed it open. They didn't even see me at first. When they did, the scramble was pathetic. Mark trying to cover himself with the sheets, Chloe just sitting there looking at me with an expression that wasn't shame. It was triumph. "It just happened, Ari," she said, smoothing her hair. "We couldn't fight the chemistry. It's a love story. You wouldn't understand." Mark moved out that night. 2 weeks later, they were Instagram official. My parents told me to be the bigger person. "You weren't right for him anyway," my mother told me over the phone, as if discussing a mismatched pair of shoes. Chloe and Mark, they make sense visually. They look good together. Think of the brand deals. I cut contact for a month. I sat in my empty apartment, drinking cheap wine and trying to figure out where I went wrong. But I eventually let them back in. Why? Because I was conditioned to. Because I was weak. Because I thought I had hit rock bottom. I was wrong. Rock bottom has a basement. 6 months after the breakup, Chloe announced she was releasing a memoir, raw, unfiltered, the truth behind the glam, the press release said. It was titled Shattered Porcelain. Curiosity got the better of me. I bought a digital copy the night it dropped. I started reading and my blood turned to ice. Chapter 1 was about growing up with severe social anxiety and being bullied for wearing hand-me-downs. That was me. Chloe had been the prom queen. I was the one who ate lunch in the library to avoid the cafeteria. Chapter 3 detailed a struggle with self-harm and a hospitalization in the 10th grade. That was my hospitalization. I still have the scars on my thighs. Chloe had been at cheer camp that summer. Chapter 6 was about the devastating loss of a childhood friend to a car accident. That was my best friend, Sarah. Chloe had hated Sarah. She used to make fun of Sarah's glasses. She had taken my life, my pain, my darkest secrets, the things I had whispered to her in moments of weakness, the contents of the diaries I thought were safe in our shared room growing up, and she had pasted her name over mine. The book was a massive success. The world ate it up. They praised Chloe for her bravery and her vulnerability. She went on talk shows and cried on cue, wiping away tears as she described my trauma. I felt so alone, she told a morning show host, her voice trembling. I was screaming for help, but no one listened. I watched that clip in my living room, shaking with the rage so pure it felt spiritual. I called my parents. How could you let her publish this? I demanded. You know those aren't her stories. You were there. You drove me to the hospital, not her. My father's voice was cold. Arianna, don't cause a scene. It's artistic license. Chloe is a storyteller. She's taking the family's collective struggle and giving it a voice. You should be proud. The advance on this book paid off the mortgage. That was the moment. That was when the switch flipped. Collective struggle? They had monetized my suffering to pay for their luxury. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was content to be mined. I didn't sue. If I sued, it would be a he said, she said. Chloe had the money, the lawyers, and the public's love. I would just be the jealous sister trying to cash in. No, I needed something undeniable. I needed total destruction. I played the long game. I called Chloe the next day. I apologized. I told her I was just emotional and that I was proud of her. I told her the book was beautiful. I knew you'd come around, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. I actually have big news. Mark and we're getting married, and a network wants to televise it. That's amazing, I said, forcing a smile into my voice. I want you to be there, Ari. I know it's weird with Mark, so you don't have to be a bridesmaid, but I need someone I trust to handle the back end. You know, the coordination. The production team is a nightmare, and you're so organized. She wanted me to work, of course. Even at her wedding to my ex-fiancé, I was the help. I'd love to, I said. I'll handle everything. For the next 8 months, I was the perfect sister. I organized the vendors. I smoothed over issues with the venue. I smiled at Mark. I helped Chloe with her dress fittings. And while I did that, I went digging. I had access to Chloe's cloud accounts because she often made me reset her passwords when she forgot them. I went through years of data, emails, voice memos, draft documents. I found the emails between Chloe and her ghostwriter. Email from Chloe. The hospitalization part needs to be sadder. Make it sound like I was in a dark room for weeks. My sister actually went through this and she was super dramatic about it, so just use that vibe. Here are photos of her old diary pages for reference. I found the financial documents. Chloe was broke. The lifestyle was a sham. She was leveraging credit to pay off credit. The wedding was sponsored, but if the sponsorship deals fell through, she would be destitute. But the holy grail was the dictations. Chloe was too lazy to type, so she would record voice notes for her ghostwriter and assistant. Thousands of hours of rambling. I listened to every single second. It took me months. I listened while I commuted, while I cooked, while I slept, and I found gold. I found a recording from a night she was drunk, ranting to her assistant about Mark. I found a recording of her mocking her fan base. I found a recording of her admitting the book was a fabrication. I spent the weeks leading up to the wedding, editing. I wasn't just making a video, I was crafting a documentary of her demise. The wedding was set to be the event of the year, the royal wedding of social media, they called it. It was held at a sprawling estate in Malibu. There were helicopters circling overhead. The guest list was a who's who of influencers, B-list celebrities, and brand representatives. The ceremony was being live-streamed to 3 million people. My role was head of production logistics. It was a fancy title that meant I was in the control booth overseeing the AV team. I had insisted on personally curating the love story video montage that was scheduled to play right before the vows. It has to be a surprise, I told Chloe, a gift from me to you. She loved the idea. She loves anything that is about her. The day arrived. The sun was shining. The flowers cost more than my college tuition. Chloe looked stunning, I'll admit that. She walked down the aisle to a live string quartet. Mark looked handsome, standing there at the altar, sweating slightly in his tuxedo. The officiant did the preamble. The crowd was hushed. The cameras were zooming in. And now, the officiant said, checking the schedule I had given him, Arianna, the bride's sister, has prepared a special visual tribute to the happy couple's journey. Chloe beamed. She looked at the camera, then at Mark, then up at the giant LED screens that flanked the altar. I sat in the dark control booth, my finger hovering over the enter key. The producer next to me, a guy named Dave, who I'd befriended over the last week, gave me a thumbs up. Ready when you are, Ari. He didn't know. Nobody knew. I hit the key, the lights in the venue dimmed, the screens flickered to life. It started sweetly. Photos of Chloe and Mark, soft music. The crowd awed. Then the music cut out, abruptly. The screen went black for a second. Then a video appeared. It was shaky, vertical footage taken on a phone. It was Chloe, holding a glass of wine, looking disheveled. Her voice boomed through the massive concert-grade speakers. God, Mark is such a bore. I mean, look at him. He's like a golden retriever with less personality. But he tests well with the 18 to 24 demographic. They love the loyal boyfriend aesthetic. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Mark's smile froze. He looked around, confused. The video cut to another clip. Chloe again. Do I love him? I mean, I love that I stole him from Arianna. That was the best part. Seeing her little face when she walked in? Priceless. She's always been such a loser. I did her a favor taking him off her hands. Mark stepped back from the altar. Chloe was frantically waving at the control booth. Turn it off! Cut the feed! She screamed. But I had locked the system. I had overridden the controls. Dave, the producer, reached for the board, but I stood up and blocked him. Let it play, I said. My voice was calm, but my eyes must have been terrifying because he froze. The video continued. The book? Oh my God, the book is a total joke, Chloe's voice laughed on screen. It's all Ari shit. The depression, the hospital, the dead friend. I didn't have a sad childhood. I was a cheerleader. But nobody buys a book about a happy girl. Tragedy sells, baby, and Arianna is a gold mine of tragedy. The camera cut to a screen recording of an email chain. It was projected 40 feet high. Subject, legal concerns re plagiarism. From ghostwriter to Chloe. Chloe, if your sister finds out we used her actual diary entries word for word in Chapter 4, she could sue us for everything. Reply from Chloe. She won't sue. She's a doormat. Mommy and Daddy will make her shut up. Just publish it. The crowd was in chaos. People were holding up their phones, recording the screens. The live stream chat, which I had projected onto a side monitor, was moving so fast, it was a blur of OMG and WTF. My parents were standing up in the front row. My mother looked like she was having a stroke. My father was shouting at security. But the finale was the financial records. I put up the bank statements. Chloe Ruiz Enterprises, overdrawn $450,000. Loan default notice. Sponsorship contract, void if reputation damage occurs. And then the final audio clip. It was from a week ago. Once the wedding is over and we get the check from the network, I'm filing for annulment. I can't be married to Mark for more than 6 months. He chews so loudly. I'll just claim he cheated or something. The fans will take my side. They always do. The screen went black. Silence. Absolute heavy silence. Then Mark turned to Chloe. He didn't say a word. He just took off his lapel mic, dropped it on the ground, and walked back down the aisle, past the stunned guests. Chloe stood there, alone at the altar. Her mascara was running. She looked at the camera, the live feed that was broadcasting her humiliation to the world, and she screamed. It wasn't a pretty influencer scream. It was a guttural, ugly sound. "Arianna!" she shrieked. "I know you're doing this. I'll kill you!" That was the moment the network finally cut the feed to commercial. Security burst into the control booth a moment later. I didn't fight them. I raised my hands, surrendered my headset, and walked out. I walked past my parents. My mother grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "What have you done?" she hissed. "You've destroyed this family." I looked her in the eye. "No, Mom, I just stopped editing it." I pulled my arm free and walked out of the venue. I got into my car, drove down the Pacific Coast Highway, and turned off my phone. The aftermath was nuclear. The video of the wedding went viral instantly. It was everywhere. Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. You couldn't escape it. Within 24 hours, Chloe lost 3 million followers. Within 48 hours, the publisher pulled her book from shelves and issued a statement saying they were investigating the fraud claims. Within a week, the sponsors for the wedding sued Chloe for breach of contract. Since the wedding wasn't completed, no vows were exchanged, the network refused to pay the broadcasting fee. Chloe was ruined. She was buried under a mountain of lawsuits. The ghostwriter, terrified of being an accessory to fraud, turned over all the original tapes to the press to save his own skin. My parents tried to do damage control, but the internet is ruthless. The emails I leaked showed them complicit in the exploitation of my childhood. They were branded as monsters. They lost their social standing. Their country club memberships were revoked. They were pariahs. As for Mark, he tried to call me a month later. He left a voicemail, crying, saying he was sorry, that he had been manipulated, that he missed me. I deleted it without listening to the end. I didn't do this to get him back. I did this to get me back. It's been 6 months since the wedding. I moved to a different state. I started a consultancy firm for digital security and reputation management. Ironically, I'm making more money now than Chloe ever did. Chloe is currently living in my parents' guest house. She filed for bankruptcy last month. She tries to post on social media sometimes, but the comments are so vicious she has to turn them off. She is a punchline, a cautionary tale. I saw a picture of her recently, taken by a paparazzo while she was pumping gas. She looked tired. She was wearing sweatpants, no makeup, and she looked normal. Just a normal, unhappy girl. I didn't feel joy when I saw it. I didn't feel sadness. I felt peace. For the first time in my life, when I walk into a room, I'm not Chloe's sister. I'm not the background character. I'm the director, and I finally like the show. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it, if it was too harsh, if family should come first. I just smile. Family does come first. That's why I had to protect the only family member who actually mattered, the little girl they tried to erase. I saved her, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. So to anyone listening who feels like they are living in someone else's shadow, who feels like their voice is being drowned out, don't just wait for the microphone, seize the projector, because the truth looks best in high definition. If you've ever lived in someone else's shadow, this channel is for you. Tap like to push stories like this forward. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.